So Jin-Woo decided to pump all 10 of his ability points into intelligence. Even after that, his intelligence was just a mere 80, pretty low number compared to his other stats. Playing. Test update. Abstinence 13-2. Terstamina. Atstunlind. Atrend. Atstunlind. Atstunlind. Atres perception. Atstunlind 3. He had 0 ability points left to spend. His physical damage reduction was now at 46%, which was pretty awesome. But let's be real. His intelligence was way behind compared to strength or agility. It was even lower than stamina, which he hadn't focused on much while leveling up his agility. Intelligence clearly wasn't his strong suit. Wow, Jin-Woo totally missed just how important the intelligence stat was. He had no clue he'd end up using magic. For now, his plan is to put any ability points he gets into boosting his intelligence. That said, don't expect him to change his fighting style anytime soon. After all, the new skill he got is still all about assassination anyway. Oh, and guess what? During his last battle, Jin-Woo picked up a sweet new skill called Dagger Throw. Yep, you guessed it. This one's all about daggers. Here's how it works. Path skill, Dagger Throw, LV. Apt skift skill, 30 mana required cause damage by throwing a dagger. Pretty cool, right? The higher the skill level, the better the accuracy and damage get. As expected, Jin-Woo was still the same old brawler. He stuck to what he knew best. Fighting with his daggers, his shadow skills would step in as backups until his intelligence improved enough to unlock more options. Armed with top-notch combat skills and an army of supporters, Jin-Woo was all set for whatever came next. Even after switching jobs, his big plans stayed the same. What really threw him off was this one surprise. Those shadow soldiers turned out way more useful than he first imagined. He totally didn't see this coming. A boss creature ended up being part of the group. Still, swapping out his dagger skills for these new shadow abilities just didn't feel right. It would waste all the experience and training he'd already put in. And he just bought Night Killer. Of all things. If only I had known I was going to become a mage hunter. I totally would have grabbed a magic wand or something from the shop instead. But then again, he might have been completely overwhelmed by those knights and failed the whole job change quest. Now that Jin-Woo had checked all his new changes, he finally closed out the stat window. Wait a minute. What time was it? 20 minutes had flown by in a flash. Jin-Woo scratched his head, looking puzzled for a moment before a determined look took over. I'd better pick up the pace, he muttered to himself. A sly grin spread across his face, as he thought about how his unique abilities weren't just for battling monsters. They could also help him tackle everyday life with ease. When Jin-Woo focused, everything around him seemed to slow down, giving him an edge that made even simple tasks feel like a breeze. With newfound energy, he left the room and headed straight for the bathroom. A quick shower later, he stepped out refreshed, picked out a cool outfit, and stood confidently in front of the mirror, ready to take on whatever came next. It only took him 3 whole minutes. He could have gone even faster, but he didn't want to mess up his old beat-up place. His hair wasn't totally dry yet, but he had saved 20 minutes, plenty of time for it to finish drying on its way out. With that settled, he decided it was time to head out. Jin-Woo was halfway out the door when something caught his eye and made him stop. There, sitting on his desk, was his house key. In the past, Jin-Woo would have been annoyed walking back to grab the key. Now, instead of turning around, he just stretched out his hand toward where it lay. When else would I use this power if not now? He thought. With a grin, he called out, "Ruler's hand." At first, the key barely moved. It just crept forward slowly. Then, in a flash, it zoomed into Jin-Woo's palm like a magnet. Was pulling it. Jage. Off, the sound of it hitting his hand made him smile even more. Catching the key midair, he couldn't help but feel proud of himself. Jin-Woo quickly got ready and closed the door behind him, whistling cheerfully as he left. He headed first to the bank, curious to see how much money he had made from selling essence stones. Usually Jinyo, the squad leader, took care of that, but Jin-Woo hadn't had time to check in a while. Jinyo mentioned to Jin-Woo that he sold the essence stones right after the raids ended for the day and put the cash into their account. He never went into detail about how much cash they had made. Instead, Jinyo rambles on endlessly about almost any topic, except money matters. It's clear he didn't seem too interested in talking about finances. Here's something interesting about Jinyo. Growing up wealthy might have been why money was the last thing on his mind. When he talked, it was usually about celebrities, raids, movies, or his favorite songs. It wasn't really a two-way chat though. Jin-Woo did most of the talking, with Jin-Woo jumping in now and then. Now that I think about it, even though Jin-Woo talked a lot, he never mentioned his family. That was weird. It had always been this way, ever since Jin-Woo could first remember meeting them. Just as Jin-Woo thought something was off, he arrived at the bank. Of all days, the ATMs were down for maintenance, so he had no choice but to go inside. Jin-Woo grabbed a number and waited his turn to talk to a teller. "Hello," said a cheerful woman, with a bob haircut and a bright smile. The woman at the bank smiled, and said, "How can I help you today? I'd like an updated bank statement, please." Jin-Woo replied, "Sure thing." She took his papers with a friendly smile. While he waited, Jin-Woo glanced around. The bank was packed for a regular afternoon. As he people-watched, the teller suddenly froze. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw his account balance. Whoa, balance. 448,920,000. 1. She double-checked the numbers, but it was definitely over $1 billion. This wasn't money he'd just saved up over time. For about a week now, more than 100 million won had been flowing into his account every single day. The teller did a double takes. He'd thought Jin-Woo was just some college kid there to help his mom with her account. Now she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her next question was more about satisfying her own curiosity. "Oh my. May I ask what you do for a living?" Her cheeks turned red, and she glanced at Jin-Woo, looking a bit embarrassed for asking something so personal. He replied casually, "I'm a hunter." Ah. She started nodding before she even realized it. So the rumors were true. She had heard that hunters could make a lot of money, but she had no idea they earned this much. She felt bad about herself for being just an ordinary employee. A minute ago he was just another face in the crowd, but now it seemed like he had stepped into a whole different world. He had to be a high-ranking hunter. After all, his account balance was massive, way more than what any average hunter would have. This was her first time meeting someone like him. Something super exciting just happened, making her heart beat fast. A dump. A young man with billions in his bank account walked in. He was already a VIP because of his money, but he was also great at finding opportunities, making him extra special. A VIP. She quickly turned on her sales charm to keep him as a client, bringing out all the banking products to show him. "We've got something super exciting here," she said with a big warm smile that felt more like talking to a friend than doing business. Her gaze stayed locked on him the whole time. Jin-Woo looked like he'd just rolled out of bed. His hair was a bit too us, and his clothes seemed like he'd grabbed whatever was handy. She could tell he was one of those super busy people who barely had time for this little errand. "Our VIP clients are loving it," she added with another smile. "Would you like to sign up?" Jin-Woo shook his head. "No thanks." The teller sounded let down. Oh. I see." Jin-Woo didn't want things to get awkward, so he stood up to leave. "Thanks for your help. Have a nice day." He could feel her eyes on him as he walked out the door. As soon as it closed behind him, he let out a quiet sigh of relief. He'd noticed how she started looking at him differently when he mentioned he was a hunter. For most hunters, getting stared at by strangers was just part of the job. But for him, it still felt brand new. "I guess I need to get used to it,"
he thought. Things were probably going to get even crazier after his next evaluation, when he might move up in rank.
He had heard stories about how hunters in higher ranks got surrounded by tons of reporters and fans. Glancing up, he saw a giant billboard on the side of a skyscraper. It showed a popular hunter smiling confidently, while sipping a soda. Before the gates showed up, you'd probably see a famous singer or sports star on that billboard. But now, hunters were the real stars. They got way more attention than any celebrity. Jin-Woo was no different. Everyone knew who he was. The only people who weren't fans of hunters, maybe employees at insurance companies. Hunters' jobs were super risky, and that meant more claims for the insurance folks to handle. Anyway, after leaving the bank, Jin-Woo checked his account balance. Jin-Woo couldn't believe his eyes. 1,480,000,000 won. He'd earned close to 1.5 billion won from just 9 raids. That worked out to about 16 million won per C-rank dungeon. And when he raided with Donsuk's squad, he'd made a whopping 80 million won. So, on average, each C-rank dungeon brought in between 50 and 200 million won. No wonder the bank clerk was amazed. After checking his balance, Jin-Woo treated himself to a sharp new suit from the department store, and even got a fresh haircut nearby since he had some time to spare. He thought, looking at his reflection. He barely looked like the same person who'd left home that morning. Money sure did make life nicer. And they weren't wrong when they said clothes can change how people see you. Jin-Woo checked himself in a store window and fixed his posture. Perfect. He smoothed his clothes, glancing at his phone to see it was 4:20. Gina had told him to be there by 5, so he knew he needed to hurry. If he left now, he'd arrive just in time. Taxi, he yelled. The taxi pulled up right at the school entrance, exactly when Gina asked. Jin-Woo walked up and found his sister waiting for him. "Gina," he said. At first, she didn't recognize him. Then her eyes widened in shock. "Jin-Woo?" she asked, blinking like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Are you really Jin-Woo-sung?" He raised an eyebrow. "Don't you recognize your own brother?" She stared at him, taking in his appearance from head to toe. Her voice rose in surprise. "You look like a completely different person." Did you expect me to show up in flip-flops and sweatpants or something?" Jin-Woo asked jokingly. Gina just stood there, her mouth hanging open. "Wow," she finally said. "Your chin is about to drop off." "I'm going ahead," Jin-Woo said. His sister wasn't going to show him where to go, so he took charge and led the way. He used to go to the school 5 years ago, and he knew every nook and cranny. There were only 2 places they could hold a parent-teacher conference: the faculty room or the guidance counselor's office. Since this meeting was about Gina's college application, he figured it was probably the latter. Jin-Woo picked up his pace, and Gina hurried to catch up with her brother. "Wait up. I'm coming," she called out. Along the way, Jin-Woo greeted a few teachers with a quick "hello, sir," and they all turned to stare at him in surprise. "Who is that?" one teacher whispered. "A graduate. But how could we forget such a standout student?" Another wondered. "Is he a new teacher?" Someone else guessed. It wasn't just the teachers who were curious. A group of students watched him walk by, and soon whispers followed them down the hall. "Wow, he's so cute," one girl said. "Who's that guy with Gina?" Another asked. "I think that's her older brother," someone replied. "He's pretty cool." A fit body and stylish suit were the winning combo that could make even the most ordinary guy catch the eyes of high school girls. But Jin-Woo wasn't caught up in any of that. He didn't let all the attention go to his head. Those whispers from the girls went in one ear and out the other. Meanwhile, Gina was having a blast. She caught every word people were saying about her brother. As soon as she caught up to him, she elbowed him playfully in the side. "Hey, you're super popular," she teased. He acted like he didn't hear her. "Don't you have a girlfriend or something?" she asked, poking fun at him. He still ignored her. "Want me to introduce you to a cute high school girl?" she said with a grin. This time Jin-Woo calmly reached out and pinched her cheek. "Stop being silly," Jin-Woo said with a grin.
"Yes, sir," Gina replied.
Her cheeks flushing as she pulled away and rubbed her face where he'd playfully pinched it. "But that didn't hurt," she added quickly, trying to sound tough despite the faint sting. Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow, clearly not believing her. "Oh, sure, you're totally not enjoying this," he teased, crossing his arms over his chest. Gina huffed but couldn't hide the grin tugging at the corners of her mouth. They were still going back and forth when they reached the guidance counselor's office. Gina, who'd somehow ended up walking ahead, spun around to face him with a smug look. "We're here," she announced proudly. Jin-Woo started to head inside, but paused when he realized Gina wasn't following. He glanced back at her. "You coming?" She shook her head, rolling her eyes good-naturedly. "It's for parents and teachers only," she said, crossing her arms like she was daring him to argue. Time to go. Jin-Woo knew the drill. He'd been through something similar in his senior year, but here's the thing: back then, he hadn't been able to invite anyone. That was when things with his mom started getting really tough. She had been in and out of the hospital nonstop. Jin-Woo hadn't told his mom about the parent-teacher meeting because he thought it would stress her out too much. Now, his homeroom teacher was upset with him. Thinking back on all that made Jin-Woo get why Gina had been so nervous today, he gave her a smile. "Studying late again tonight?" "Yeah. You can head home without me." "Got it." He reached over and ruffled her hair. "Study hard. I'll see you at home." "Hey, stop doing that," Gina said, fixing her hair again. Jin-Woo just grinned as he walked into the office. "Still treating me like I'm a child," Gina muttered under her breath. But deep down she didn't really mind. She snuck a peek around to make sure no one was watching before letting out a little skip on her way back to class. Jin-Woo couldn't help but notice their homeroom teacher. If he had to pick one word to describe her, it would be virtuous. The teacher was a middle-aged woman with a warm smile that instantly made you feel at ease. She looked like the kind of person who always tried to do the right thing. "Are you Gina's older brother?" she asked with a friendly glance, her tone as soothing as a cup of hot chocolate on a chilly day. The woman didn't ask any questions about Jin-Woo being there instead of a parent. Maybe she already knew about their family situation. "Nice to meet you," she said with a smile. "I'm Gina's homeroom teacher. I had no idea she had such an awesome brother." Haha, Jin-Woo bowed politely in response. He had never seen this teacher before, so she must have started at the school after he graduated. First impressions matter a lot, and her warm welcome made him feel more at ease. Even though he was younger than her, she was being super polite to him. With a teacher like this, Jin-Woo didn't think his sister would have any problems in her senior year. "Please take a seat," she said. Sitting back down herself, Jin-Woo pulled up a chair across the table from her. The conversation that followed was pretty standard for a parent-teacher meeting. "You don't need to worry about Gina," she assured him. The conversation went smoothly. Gina was a star student, so there was no need to worry. "You know, Gina wants to go to medical school, right?" "Yes." The teacher glanced at the notes she had ready. "Gina's practice test scores are awesome, and her grades are super strong. I think she's got a great shot at getting in." Jin-Woo quietly agreed with what was said. He could tell the teacher really believed in Gina and wanted the best for her. Teachers handling senior classes usually feel stressed because those grades can make or break a student's future. A lot of teachers try to avoid being assigned as homeroom teachers for seniors, rumor has it. A lot of male teachers end up with senior classes whether they like it or not. But Jin-Woo felt lucky that Gina's teacher seemed to genuinely care. As Gina's guardian, he felt thankful for that. About 15 minutes later, the meeting was winding down. "Well then," Jin-Woo said, just as he was about to stand up. But the teacher hesitated before asking another question in a careful tone. "I heard you work as a hunter," she said, her expression turning serious. Jin-Woo could tell she was getting at something important. "Yes." The teacher paused, then asked, If Gina awakened, would you let her become a hunter?" Jin-Woo's answer was quick and firm. "No. Never." Jin-Woo was totally sure about this. No doubts at all. Her face turned serious, and she said, "I figured you'd say that." Jin-Woo looked at her confused, but then she seemed to make up her mind. "Hey, can I ask you for a favor?" she asked boldly. Jin-Woo nodded. "Sure, if it's something I can help with." He leaned in, curious about what she was going to ask. She was his sister's homeroom teacher, so he didn't want to seem rude by flat out saying no. She spoke fast, like she was worried he might change his mind. "There's another girl who awakened and is trying to quit school," she said. "She stopped coming to class a while back." "Oh. This happened a lot." Newbies often thought they were superstars right away, even though they had zero experience and didn't get what being a hunter really meant. They didn't realize that hardly any hunters actually struck it, rich or became famous. The teacher let out a deep sigh. If she keeps ditching class, the school will have to step in. But seriously, even if she wants to become a hunter, shouldn't she finish high school first? Jin-Woo nodded, agreeing with the teacher's point. His positive response put her a little more at ease. "Could you help me persuade her to graduate at least?" She managed a small smile. Jin-Woo was curious about only one thing. What rank has she awakened as? "As far as I've heard, it's the lowest rank. E rank. She'll get herself killed," he thought, shaking his head in dismay. E-rank hunters had to be extremely cautious, even when entering a dungeon. If they weren't careful, stepping into one could lead to injuries, or even death, at least 9 times out of 10. It broke Jin-Woo's heart to think of a girl his sister's age going through something so tough. But in the end, it was her decision. No one could force her to do anything she didn't want to. Jin-Woo felt sorry for the girl, but he didn't see why he should take time out of his busy schedule, just to lecture someone on how to live their life. "I don't think I'd even succeed," he thought. Plus, she probably wouldn't listen anyway. Jin-Woo was about to turn down the teacher's request and leave when "Gina knows her too," the teacher said. Hearing that name made Jin-Woo's legs feel like jelly, and he struggled to stay standing. He asked again, "Sorry. What was the student's name?" "Ayers," came the reply. "Do you know her?" There was a pause before he answered. Korea really was a small country after all. Jin-Woo's eyes widened in surprise as the pieces fell into place. Meanwhile, at Myung-han Yu's grand house, the chairman of Yujin Construction, things were buzzing. Fancy imported cars had been coming and going since morning. The reason? That evening, they were holding a memorial ceremony for Byung-han Yu, the first chairman of Yujin Group, and guess who his son was? Myung-han Yu, Korea's richest businessman. Every year, Myung-han made sure to perform the ceremony, no matter how packed his schedule was. As the eldest son, he took this tradition seriously. His influence was so great that every member of the Yo clan showed up annually. These weren't just ordinary people, many were powerful figures like the head of a security company, the chairman of a pharmaceutical company, and the president of a department store. Their kids were also top achievers, considered the best of the best. But there was one exception. Jin-Yo had hidden himself in a quiet corner, away from everyone else, even though no one told him he had to be there. Honestly, this was so boring. He couldn't wait for it all to be over. Compared to going on raids with Jin-Woo, which was way more fun, this felt like sitting still for ages. Jin-Yo wondered what the boss was up to right now. Jin-Yo had no idea what Jin-Woo did on his days off. Curious, Jin-Yo sat in a quiet corner, sipping on something and letting his mind wander. Then he heard a voice that annoyed him. "Hey," it said. He turned to see Jin-Woo standing there, looking every bit the confident, skilled guy he was. Jin-sung stood tall, wearing fancy glasses that made him look like he owned the place. As the older brother of Jin-Hyo and the future boss of Yujin Construction, he acted like he was in charge. He stepped right in front of Jin-Hyo, towering over him. "Stop acting like a baby." Jin-sung snapped. "Our relatives are here, so get out there and greet them." Jin-Hyo mumbled under his breath. "Just leave me alone." Jin-sung glared at him. "Remember, every dumb thing you do makes father look bad." His words were cold and harsh, showing no love for his brother. The feeling was mutual. Jin-Hyo didn't like him much either, but Jin-Hyo wasn't brave enough to stand up to Jin-sung. He just stayed quiet, but he had good reasons for feeling this way. Jin-sung wasn't just a whiz kid, he was the best of the best at everything he did. And it wasn't just about academics. After graduation, he jumped into business with his dad, and every project they took on was a huge success. His older brother Jin-Hyo, though, had a tougher time. Getting into college was a struggle for him, and he didn't have much else to show for it. Jin-Hyo felt small compared to him. His brother Jin-sung let out a loud sigh. "Pathetic. Look at you," he said, shaking his head. Jin-Hyo looked down, feeling embarrassed. Jin-sung quickly put on a fake smile and walked away. "Uncle," someone called out. "Oh, hi there, Jin-sung," the uncle replied. Jin-Hyo didn't lift his head until his brother was gone. This was exactly why he hated coming home. If it wasn't for the memorial ceremony, he sighed again. Then a sharp voice caught his attention from behind. "Unbelievable," it said. "He's totally stuck on himself." Jin-Ho turned around. It was his cousin Sahyoon Yu, who was a year older than him. "Did you hear what he just said?" "Seriously." Sahyoon walked up to Jin-Ho and playfully slapped him on the shoulder. She scrunched up her face like she'd just bitten into a lemon. "Watch this," she said, rolling her eyes dramatically. "Pathetic, Sahyoon and pathetic, Sahyoon and." Jin-Ho burst out laughing at Sahyoon's over-the-top impression. "Puffed, Kisi, Sahyoon and," she said, trying to catch his breath.